In this video, we're going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. Here's your steps. Move all terms to one side, set the equation equal to 0. Step number 2, we factor. Step number 3, set each factor equal to 0, solve for the x value, and then we're going to write our answers as a solution set. Okay, here we go. Step number 1, let me zoom in so we have plenty of space. Step number 1, we are going to factor. Well, set it equal to 0 and then factor. This is a simple, let's just factor out an x. You have a GCF. X times x gives you x squared. X times 9 gives you 9x. Here's the reason you set each factor equal to 0. These two things are now being multiplied. If two things multiply to give you 0, that means that one of those two things has to equal 0. So either x is 0 or x plus 9 is 0. Now let's solve for x. This one's done. Move the 9 over by subtracting 9, and you'll get x equals 0 minus 9, which is negative 9. There's your two solutions. So therefore, x is equal to, we'll write it as a solution set, either negative 9 or 0. Number 2. We do have a GCF of a 4 and an x. Factor it out. You're left with an x in the first term. You're left with a negative 2 in the second term. Set each factor equal to 0. Solve, and you get divide by 4 in the first one, you get 0. Add 2, move the minus 2 over by adding 2 in the second one, gives you 2. So therefore, x is either equal to 0 or 2. And again, those could actually be plugged back in. 4 times 0 squared minus 8 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 squared is 16. Minus 16 is 0, so it does check out. Number 3. This is difference of squares. Difference of squares factor into conjugates. Plus, minus, x times itself, 2 times itself. Gives you 0. Set each factor equal to 0. Move the 2 over, gives me x is negative 2. Move the negative 2 over, gives me x is positive 2. So therefore, my solution set, x is either equal to a negative 2 or a positive 2. Number 4. Also difference of squares, 3x times itself, 5 times itself. So therefore, 2 sets of parentheses. That difference of squares factor into conjugates. 3x times itself, 5 times itself gives you the 25. Set each factor equal to 0. Move the 5 over by subtracting. That is 3x is negative 5. To get rid of the 3, you divide. Move the 5 over by adding. 3x is equal to positive 5. Get rid of the 3 by dividing. And there's your two solutions. X is equal to either negative 5/3 or a positive 5/3. Number 5. Step 1, we factor. This is one of the adds multiplies problem. X and x adds multiplies will be a negative 7 and a negative 3. Set each factor equal to 0. Solve, move the minus 7 by adding 7, gives you a 0 plus 7. Move the minus 3 by adding 3, gives you 3. So therefore, x is equal to either 3 or 7. Number 6. You do have a GCF here, so let's factor that GCF out first. You're left with x squared minus x minus 12. 2 sets of parentheses. X times x gives you the x squared. Adds, multiplies is a negative 4 and a positive 3. Now here's the thing. You're going to set every factor equal to 0. However, when you set 2 equal to 0, well, it's impossible for 2 to equal 0. So therefore, that really doesn't even matter. You don't have to worry about that factor. Move the 4 over by adding 4. Move the 3 over by subtracting 3. And that gives you solutions of negative 3 or a positive 4. Number 7. Let's see, we have a slip and slide problem this time. So that'd be x squared minus 13x minus 90. Let's factor like normal. X times x. Adds, multiplies. That will be a negative 18 and a positive 5. The number that you moved. Now let's divide by. And that will give you an x minus 6. That won't divide, so therefore we're going to move the 3 back up front. And there's what you now have. Set each factor equal to 0. Move the 6 over by adding, so that gives you x is either equal to 6. Move the 5 over by subtracting. Then move the 3 over by dividing. Now I want to point out something. If you're solving equations using slip and slide, you can actually get your answers from here. X plus 5/3, had you set that equal to 0, you would have got the exact same answer. You do have to move it back up when you're actually factoring, just if I just ask you to factor it. But if you're solving an equation by factoring, you could actually stop and get your answer from there. So your solution set, and I like to put these in order, is -5/3 and +6. Number 8, got another slip and slide problem, x squared plus 5x minus 24, two sets of parentheses. X times itself, adds, multiplies, is a +8 and a -3. Whatever number you moved, we now divide by, so divided by 6 and 6. 8 divided by 6 you can't do, so let's reduce that. Let's divide by 2, top and bottom. That's 4/3. 3, 6 also will not divide, so let's reduce it. Again, you could stop and get your answers from there, but I'm going to go ahead and finish it out. That's going to be a 3x plus 4 when I slide it back to the front, and a 2x minus 1. Set each factor equal to 0. Let's come over here and do it. 3x plus 4 is 0. 2x minus 1 is 0. Move the 4 over by subtracting. It gives you 3x is -4. Now you divide by 3. There's one solution. Move the 1 over by adding. Gives you 2x is 1. We now divide by 2. So your two solutions, your solution set is -4/3 or a +1/2. Okay, number 9. Okay, notice here that we don't have everything on one side. So step number 1, it needs to be on the same side. So move this term over here. A +5x would change to a -5x. Then you do the same thing. Look for a common factor here, and it is an x. X times a 2x gives you this term, and x times -5 gives you the second term. Set each factor equal to 0. That one's already solved. Move the 5 over, and I like to start doing these in one step. Move the 5 over by adding, and then divide by 2. And you'll get, when you move the 5 over, it'll be a +5, and then you divide by 2, gives you a 5/2. So therefore, your solution set is 0 and 5/2, and you could always write that as a decimal as well. Number 10, everything needs to be on the same side, so let's move this x squared by subtracting x squared. Gives you 6x squared plus 8x is equal to nothing. Nothing's left over there. Let's factor out a 2 and an x. 2 times 3 is 6. I need 2 x's, so let's add one more in there. 2 times 4 is 8, and I need 1 x, and it's on the outside, so we're done for there. Set each factor equal to 0. Here when you divide by 0, it gives you 0. Here when you subtract 4 and divide by 3, 0 minus 4 is -4, and divide that by 3 gives you your second solution. So therefore, your x values is the solution set, -4/3 or 0 are your two solutions. Let's try that again. There we go. Number 11, everything needs to be on the same side, so let's subtract this x squared. Gives you 1x squared, and let's add our 1, and that gives you -49, and nothing's left on the right side. This is now difference of squares. Difference of squares factors into conjugates. X times itself gives you x squared. 7 times itself gives you 49. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. And you'll get either a -7 or a +7. So that would be your solution set. Getting bad at those. There we go. -7, +7. Next problem. Number 12. Everything's moved to the same side, so let's add that x squared. Gives me 4x squared, and then just move the 81 over by subtracting 81. Again, difference of squares, so therefore conjugates. 2x times itself, 9 times itself. Set each factor equal to 0. Subtract 9 divided by 2 gives me a negative 9 and divided by 2. Add 9 divided by 2 gives me a positive 9 and divided by 2. So therefore, x is either equal to negative 9 halves or positive 9 halves. Number 13. Everything is moved to the same side. There's no like terms here, so just move the 80 by changing it to minus 80. Two sets of parentheses. X times x adds multiplies is a positive 10 and a negative 8. Set each factor equal to 0. Move the 10 over, it gives you a negative 10. Move the 8 over, it gives you a positive 8. So therefore, your solution set is negative 10 and a positive 8. 14, everything gets moved to the same side. No like terms with x squared. When you subtract x, that leaves you with plus 10x. When you subtract 4, that gives you a positive 25, and nothing's left on the right side. Half of this squared gives you this, so therefore this is a perfect square trinomial. So it's going to factor into x times itself and a positive 5 and a positive 5. And later on we'll talk about how you actually have two solutions here. However, both solutions are the exact same thing. X is either equal to negative 5 or negative 5, so therefore we can just say x is equal to, we don't have to list them twice, x is equal to negative 5. Looking at the graph of that, now a reminder what we talked about earlier, if you were to graph this, it would come down and it would touch it. That's the reason you see only the one solution. That would actually be the vertex of that parabola. Combine like terms, move your x squared over by subtracting. You have 2 minus 1, which leaves you with 1. Let's add our 1x. That would leave you with negative 8x. Bring down the negative 65. Two sets of parentheses. X times x adds multiplies. That'd be a negative 13 and a positive 5. Set each factor equal to 0. And move the 13 over, gives you x is 13. Move the 5 over, gives you x is negative 5. Therefore, your solution set is a negative 5 or a 13. Next up, move everything to the same side, gives you a 4x squared minus 3x. You're going to add the 3x, that gives you 44x's. Plus 2, you're going to minus 2, that gives you a 96. So therefore, we have a GCF of 4 that can be factored out. You're left with x squared plus 11x plus 24. Bring down the 4. Two sets of parentheses. X times itself gives you x squared, a positive 3 and a positive 8 adds and multiplies, give you 11 and 24. Set each factor equal to 0. You don't really have to worry about this one. X plus 3 is 0. X plus 8 is 0. Gives you that either x is negative 3 or x is negative 8. So negative 8, negative 3. Okay, number 17. Again, move everything to the same side. 2x squared, no like terms. X becomes a minus x when you move it. 21 becomes a minus 21 when you move it. This is a slip and slide problem, so let's do x squared minus x. Move the 2 to the end, be now negative 42. Factor. X times itself. Adds, multiplies, will be a negative 7 and a positive 6. We're now going to divide by the 2 that we moved. And that leaves me with, this will not divide or reduce, so I'm going to move the 2 back up front, 2x minus 7. And 6 divided by 2, that gives you a 3. Set each factor equal to 0. 2x minus 7 is 0. X plus 3 is 0. Move the 7 by adding and then divide by 2. Add 7 gives you 7. Divided by 2 gives you 7 halves. Move the 3 by subtracting gives you negative 3. So therefore, x is going to be the solution set. Negative 3 or 7 halves. Number 18. Move everything to the same side. There are no like terms with 4x squared. When you move positive x, you're going to subtract x. You now have negative 12. When you move a negative 9, you're going to add 9. Nothing's left on the right side. Again, bottoms up, and I believe if you look, half of this squared is 36. This is also 36 when you multiply. This should be a perfect square trinomial, so you can use your shortcut if you would like to. Again, shortcut is what multiplies to give you that. What multiplies to give you that would be a 3 times 3. If this is a negative, you do have to put a minus here, so that'd be 2x minus 3 squared. Or let's remind you of bottoms up, or slip and slide. X squared minus 12x plus 36. Two sets of parentheses, x and x. Adds, multiplies be a negative 6 and a negative 6. Divide by the number that you moved. That's going to be x minus, that won't divide, but it will reduce to a 3 halves. So x minus 3 halves and x minus 3 halves. Move the bottom back up front. That'd be a 2x minus 3 and another 2x minus 3. Set each factor equal to 0. There's only one. 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Well, there's two factors, but they're the same. Move the 3 over, divide by 2, gives you x is 3 halves. So therefore, your solution set has only one value in it, and it is 3 halves.